Okay. So now we're going to talk about the heart, right? So I'm really trying to get uh, students to understand the distinction between um, the implementational level and the algorithmic level. And so I think a good way to talk about this is the heart, right? So consider a heart, right? The function of a heart is to pump oxygenated blood to the lungs, which then become oxygenated, which then get pumped out to the rest of the body to use for use of that oxygen, right? However, an artificial heart can accomplish this job as well, right? And similarly, a lot of hearts vary in all kinds of different ways, such as size, number of valves, you know, cross species, right? And number of beats per minute. And this illustrates that the algorithm of pumping the blood, you know, the algorithm that the heart accomplishes is multiply realizable, right? And so similarly, the algorithm that gets implemented can also be implemented in other ways, right? Now, of course, a heart is pretty simple. It's a pretty simple mechanism or function. So you, of course, that it makes sense that that would be multiply realizable, and all you have to do is understand how the heart works. But again, it's a simple mechanism, so it's not that hard for it to be multiply realizable in this example. But consider the mind, right? Or the brain, the rules of the mind, what the mind accomplishes via the brain, understanding the rules of that mind or the rules of the mind and what it's doing exactly. If we knew how it worked precisely, in principle, the idea is that we could somehow replicate it in a different physical system. Okay, so the big picture, right? So the computational level, usually the way that we try to understand things on a computational level, as I said, it's usually with theorizing or thinking about stuff, right? So philosophers are really big on the computational level. Um, but you can also write code to try to see like, you know, is this problem, how can I simulate this problem? Um, anyways, uh, also on the algorithmic level, this is where cognitive science and cognitive psychology come into play. Um, you know, so things like experiments with actual people, right? Psychophysics, behavioral data, and then maybe perceptual illusions to try to figure out how perception works. Sometimes it's good to use to sort of induce a perceptual illusion, and that gives you some idea of where the system's going wrong. And then the implementational level, that usually involves neuropsych patients, people who have had brain damage, or putting people through an fMRI, or measuring their ERPs, or they're giving them a PET scan. So this is all about how things work on an implementational level, right? The brain level. But usually we're cognitive scientists tend to be more interested on the algorithmic level, right? This is the study of the mind. It's not the study of the brain, right? We can still use findings from the study of the brain to figure out things about the mind. But at its core, cognitive science is about cognition. Okay, so to start, right? So the computational level is about describing the task that the in this example, right? It's describing the task that the cognitive system performs in a very general and abstract fashion, right? So you translate a general description of the cognitive system into a specific account of the particular information processing problem that the system is configured to solve, right? And then you might identify the constraints that hold upon any solution to that information processing task, right? So now we're going to talk about the Marr's levels as it relates to, actually, we're going to talk about it in the next video, but we're going to talk about the each level on a as it relates to vision. Okay.